whanua o Waihi. Mo pu honua o Lāʻie malo'o mo Lāʻie vai. Whakaapapa atu ki he kautaki kotoa I hao whangan. Kai ata e whangan. Ke wholaloa e whala, ke tautala noa he ngeia o e tangata I he funga o e whakaapa-apa mo e whe ofani. I begin with a Tongan honorific salutation, honoring the sacred tapu of Almighty Otua, God, the indigenous people of Hawaii, this honua, vanua, whenua, a sanctuary of Lāʻie Malo'o and Lāʻie Vai. My respect to all the leaders, participants who are here, so that I may be permitted to roll out the mat so that we can talanoa converse about human dignity within the context of mutual respect and love. Maloelele and aloha. Aloha. My name is Tēvita Kaʻili. I am a professor of Anthropology and Cultural Sustainability here at BYU Hawaii, and I'm deeply honored to moderate this panel on Tonga and human dignity. I will begin by introducing our panelists, our esteemed panelists, and following that, I will turn over to them. Honorable Linda Folaumoetu'i is an Attorney General of Tonga. She's a pioneering Tongan lawyer and civil servant, has been the Attorney General of Tonga since 2019. Her legal career began after studying at the University of Auckland, the University of South Pacific, and the University of Melbourne. Following Honorable Folaumoetu'i, we will use technology to Zoom with Dr. Mele Tupou-Vaitohi, Ph.D. Senior Lecturer at Law Faculty at Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand. Mele Tupou-Vaitohi is a Senior Law Lecturer at Te Herenga Waka, which is Victoria University of Wellington, and a leading scholar in Tongan constitutional law. She holds a Ph.D. in law from the University of Otago, an LLM from Queen's Mary University of London, and an LLB from the University of South Pacific. And our last panelist will be the Honorable Alisi Taumoepeau, Ombudsman, former Attorney General, and Minister of Justice in Tonga. Alisi Taumoepeau became the Ombudsman of Tonga on June 28, 2023. She holds an LLB and an LLM honors degree from Victoria University of Wellington and is a qualified barrister and solicitor of the New Zealand Bar. Alisi's distinguished career with Tonga government legal services includes her role as Solicitor General from 2002 to 2006, Attorney General and Minister of Justice from 2006 to 2009. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming our panelists. We'll start with Honorable Robert.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kaʻili and Maloelele, and I am very, very privileged and happy to be standing in front of you all today to give a short presentation on human dignity from the Tongan perspective. My presentation consists of, I think, nearly 30 pages, and typical lawyers, we like to talk a lot. And usually the subject matter is very dry. However, my presentation, although it consists of 30 plus pages, are full of pictures, just to keep the audience, yourselves, awake, and hopefully by the end of my presentation, it may be clear to you all. So please bear with me as I provide the presentation. Before I start, I would like to thank and congratulate the Brigham Young University for organizing this important event and bringing together the Oceanian countries to discuss a very important issues on how human dignity is to be addressed from the variety of Oceania perspectives. This presentation will compose of the following. I've been told just to click anything. Yep. A quick outline is to give a very short definition of what human dignity is, give an international perspective of human rights, the application of human rights in the Tongan context, talk about the application of the golden strands of Tongan custom or culture, the challenges in which the Tongan perspective of human dignity faces, and a way forward. In looking for a definition for human dignity, I submit to you all that according to Jean Amory's definition, and this was in 1980, it was said, I must confess that I don't know exactly what human dignity is. But according to the definition that was given in 2020 by Adam Ettinson, the core idea of human dignity is that on earth, humanity is the greatest type of being. And that has been alluded to in the previous presentations. So follows the question, what is human dignity from a Tongan perspective? Human dignity, as translated in the Tongan language, is ngeia whakatangata. Human, whakatangata, categorizing or relating to man and mankind which have attributes opposed to animals. And dignity, or ngeia, is the state or quality of being worthy of honor, a sense of self-importance. Human dignity under an international human rights perspective. I know you all are quite learned in this respect. So I'll just quickly go through the next slides. Of course, there's the civil and political rights. As you all know, as listed on the slides show, right to life, freedom of movement, and we can go on and on. You also have the economic, social, and cultural rights. Right to work, right to just and favorable conditions of work, protection of the family. Then there's the collective areas. Self-determination, healthy environment, right of indigenous people, and it can go on. Then you have states' obligation on human rights in relation to respect of a right, protection of a right, and fulfilling those rights. Later on in this presentation, I will talk about how Tonga has moved towards respecting or protecting and fulfilling these international rights to certain respects. If I now can invite you to please also look at the application of human dignity in the Tongan context, or ngeia whakatangata in the Tongan context. Human dignity in the Tongan context is applied in accordance with the 4 golden pillars of the Tongan culture. We have what's called whakaapa-apa, or respect, lototo, humility, tauhiwa, or nurturing relationships, and mamahi mea, which is loyalty or passion. Before Tonga had modern laws, societal behavior was governed by these 4 golden strands. And these 4 golden pillars or strands influences the way a Tongan's human dignity is observed and respected. Tongan society can operate peacefully using these four golden strands. We will now consider the impact of these 4 golden pillars or strands on a person's human dignity in Tonga. As previously stated, human dignity is the core idea of human dignity is that on earth. Humanity is the greatest type of this being. This statement makes us assume that as humans, we are entitled to all the international standards of human rights. However, when born in Tonga, what is considered as human rights may be viewed that there are limitations on our human dignity. For example, your gender. If you're born as a female in Tonga, there are certain rights that you may not be fully accessible to as a woman compared to a man in terms of land. If you're born into royalty or nobility in Tonga, yes, there are different rights that you are automatically entitled to that commoners may not be. Just bearing in mind those limitations, we now turn to human dignity's application, international standards, and Tongan laws. The main source of law in Tonga, which protects our human dignity, is our Constitution of 1874. 1875, it was enacted. And this Constitution, interestingly enough, was enacted 73 years before the enactment of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And our history tells us that our King George Tupou I, through his advisor, came to Hawaii to look and to consider the Hawaiian Constitution back then to see what can be used in our Tongan Constitution. Yes, our Constitution was found or enacted by the founder of modern Tonga, King George Tupou I, way before the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The next few slides will show the basic international human rights as outlined previously and other international instruments together with relevant provisions from the Tongan Constitution and other relevant laws, which shows how modern Tongan laws were and to a certain extent how it is limited. The civil and political rights under the Declaration, United Nations declarations, we have these rights already enshrined in our Constitution. Declaration of Freedom. We have under our Constitution the freedom from slavery and forced labor, right to recognize a person before the law, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, freedom of worship. We have freedom of the press and a right to a fair trial. This highlights how our laws in Tonga recognises these rights. We also have the right to equality before the law and non-discrimination. And the rights to take part in the conduct of public affairs, voting, be elected and have access to public office. So there's a vast of rights that have already been in our Constitution, which also recognises United Nations human rights. Sorry, just move on. Like I said, I've got lots of slides, but more it's just giving examples of what's already in our laws. If I can move on to, yep, we've got rights to just and favourable conditions of work, rights to adequate standard of living, including adequate food, clothing, and housing. In the collective areas, we've got self-determination, development, healthy environment. So we can say that Tonga is quite modern in that respect. We now turn to golden strands in the Tongan laws and how that reflects human dignity. It's quite interesting that in our laws we still have a lot of references to our culture. I know a lot of people in Tonga don't know that these provisions are still in our laws, but according to our town regulations, our town's regulations, it's unlawful to pass a noble on horseback or in any vehicle without stopping, even though nobles don't ride horses anymore. But this law was enacted in the early 1900s. Unlawful to wear a wha'o or turban in the presence of any noble, and unlawful to wear a ta'avala or things Dr. Kaʻili has around his waist in the presence of any noble. This is actually still practiced. However, the two first mentioned ones are not practiced in reality, but it is actually still in our regulations. It's been indicated I've got 2 more minutes, so we'll just move on. In relation to, so my presentation can be given to anyone who requires it. So we'll just quickly consider the challenges in the international law context. In Tonga, we still have the death penalty, and this is a challenge to in relation to our international obligations. We still have whipping as one of the penalties to be provided, and we also have no specific legislation to protect privacy in Tonga. Yet there is a pending privacy bill that will be put up to our Legislative Assembly this year. In relation to right to just and favourable conditions, we are yet to pass our employment Relations Act, and in relation to Social Security, we don't have such an act to date in Tonga. So there are certain areas that we still need to improve, and this is the challenge in relation to the international arena. There are certain conventions Tonga still hasn't signed on to, for example, CEDAW and the Convention in relation to disability. And this is because there's still a very strong religious opposition thinking that these conventions provides for same-sex marriages, and also in relation to our land issues, we see, or the public of the view that we still want to honour our current land laws in Tonga. So all in all, there's challenges for upholding human dignity in Tonga according to the international context. For example, in relation to our land laws, protection of our human dignity is dependent on the practice of our 4 golden strands. Maintaining culture and traditions versus rule of law and human dignity in respect of same-sex marriages and so forth. And there's the question, can we distinguish our culture and traditional practices from the application of the rule of law? The way forward in relation to seeing what Tonga wants in the future, in relation to international human rights conventions, it's really a talanoa process. There still needs to be that process of consultation and talking to the public as to what Tonga really wants in the future. We have our culture, there's the rule of law in relation to international conventions, but at the end of the day, Tonga is a sovereign country and can make their own decisions in relation to these aspects. There's the appreciation of the vision of our forefathers that all persons are to be equal, as enacted in the Constitution. And there are current legislative changes that the current government is considering, and that includes a change or an amendment to our Constitution to enact or to put in our Constitution that culture should be recognized in our Constitution. I had alluded previously to some aspects in our laws which still follows culture in relation to nobles passing by or being in the presence of nobles, you have to wear the mats, and other examples I gave. But this new amendment, which has actually been put to the Legislative Assembly and has been passed, but is yet to get His Majesty's Royal Assent, it reads, customs in Tonga comprises all reasonable and sufficiently certain customs, traditional practices, values, and usages of Tongans in every court of the tribunal in the kingdom, where relevant, shall have regard thereto when deciding any matter before them for decision. Custom requires to be established in evidence, but in so doing, a court or tribunal shall not apply technical rules of evidence, but shall admit and consider such information as is available. Tongan customs shall not be lost by reason of lack of recent usage. I'm aware that a lot of Pacific Islands have a provision under their legislation in relation to custom, but this is a new approach by Tonga in recognizing our Tongan customs. So this is actually quite an important provision in our laws, which will definitely make the courts, in providing a decision, consider custom, if there is a need, to ensure that it's made as a consideration in their rulings and judgment. So all in all, I leave with this with you all this question: how do I uphold international standards of human dignity and respect my cultural heritage for golden strands at the same time? That brings my presentation to an end. I see the timekeepers have run out of time, but thank you very much for the opportunity and for giving me.
Whanga. E ngā whakatapu kua whaki. Kau atu, he maalari o e ahau. Distinguished colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation to be here. And honored to try and share some of Tonga's perspective on human dignity. Being over-emotional is part of being Tongan as well, so I make no apologies. I have up on the screen my most important picture that I had picked up in the last 2 years almost now. Maybe if you can just flip over and show us the map of Tonga, the next slide. There we are, adrift in Oceania. New Zealand to the south, Fiji to the west, Samoa to the north, Cook Islands somewhere to the east, and Hawaii somewhere in the north. We are adrift in Pacifica. Of all the many, many reports that came out from government, from churches with pictures of drones from up there and the water and what came up and the destruction. This picture, for me, represented the spirit of a people. I read through the report with all the food going in and the beddings and the construction and the army and the New Zealand army ships that came in to help at Australia. This was a 5-year-old on the island of Tonga in one of the northern groups. And what caught my attention in this thick report, she was asked by one of the church humanitarian group, what are you doing? You have no house, you have nothing left over here, what are you doing? It's a bundle of papers. She said, I'm looking for my school bag. This happened on the 15th of January, 2 years ago. And for every child, yes, even university students, Mele, January is when they start looking for their bag to get to school. And after all this trauma, this child of 5 in this remote island inspired me. Yeah, the house is gone, our clothes are gone. I've got a skirt with an elastic that can protect my head. What did it say to me? It spoke to my heart. She was saying, I'm sitting in the safety of Nuwalofa, reading reports that comes from the air from everywhere. And she was actually saying, I'm good. I'm looking ahead and planning my future. I had a team go back to this island to look for this child. Give me a name, give me parents, give me the facts. That's what Ombudsman staff should be doing. That's her name, Mele Moala. Tonga Island, Lulunga Hapai. And she's happily at primary school now. She will always be my star. How does this relate to human dignity? Can someone give me a tissue, please? Who is able to ingrain or to teach a 5-year-old the priorities when all is washed away by a tsunami, when your house is no longer there? How do you teach a 5-year-old? You can actually just pick up a piece of paper, find a piece of elastic with a bit of material, use it for a hat to protect your head, and just keep planning. Yeah. And an old prosecutor like me will be inspired to send a team after you. That to me is human dignity. Tēvita didn't quite introduce me properly. I'm a wife, a mother of 5, and 4 grandchildren. And I'd like to look at human dignity from that perspective. I think I'd like to acknowledge all the faith, all the churches who have helped nurture all the people in Pacifica. And all your churches are on this island. And bringing a gathering like this is a great achievement. Yes, we talk about unity in diversity, but the reality is still very far from that, as we've heard from the research in New Zealand. But Mele, the three panelists here are all lawyers and all graduates of New Zealand Law School. Law schools. Our current Attorney General is an Auckland Law School graduate. I'm a Victoria Law School graduate. The lecturer at the law school at Victoria is an Otago University. So whatever the challenges, and what was shared before, who we are, and what we have in our hearts. As children of Oceania, we are resilient, and like this 5-year-old child, we're good. We see the challenges, but we look forward and do better tomorrow than what we're doing today. Linda has spoken of our constitution, Tongan constitution, and I guess as a lawyer I have to talk about, or at least refer to it. Clause 1 of our Constitution, and I'm sure all the clergy here will be very happy with the drafters of our 1875 Constitution. Clause 1. Since it appears to be the will of God that man should be free, as he has made all men of one blood. Therefore, shall the people of Tonga and all who sojourn or may sojourn in this kingdom be free forever. And all men may use their lives and persons and time to acquire and possess property and dispose of their labor and the fruit of their hands, and to use their own property as they will. That must have been music to people who'd known slavery. and this was 1875. Thank you, Hawaii, for the president. Clause 5 specifically, all men are free to practice their religion and to worship God as they deem fit, in accordance with the dictates of their own consciences, and to assemble for religious service in such places as they may appoint. But it shall not be lawful to use this freedom to commit evil or licentious acts, or under the name of worship, to do what is contrary to the law and peace of the land. Just 2 years ago, our Constitution was again amended. And as I'll tell you later, my office, the Ombudsman office, celebrated. That amendment made the office of Ombudsman a constitutional office. Accountable to the Legislative Assembly and independent to do its work. Free from any interference. That was only 2 years ago. My last reference to our Constitution has a lot to do with our culture. Clause 41 reads like this: the king is the sovereign of all the chiefs and all the people. The person of the king is sacred. He governs the country, but his ministers are responsible. All acts that have been passed by the Legislative Assembly must bear the king's signature before it becomes law. Okay, Alisi, how does this relate to culture? I think Tēvita can take us to culture, but let me just put in my 2 cents worth. Tongan mythology asserts that Tonga's royal family has divine origins. I hear the last panel, all of you telling me that even I as a commoner have divine origins. the god Tangaloa climbed down from the sky on a casuarina tree, met this beautiful Tongan lady, Vaipopua, got her pregnant, and she gave birth to a son named Ahaitu. Mythology has this dated at AD 950. When Ahaitu was old enough, he went to the sky to visit his father and returned with several celestial beings. I know all you lawyers out there are saying, evidence, you know, this kind of mythology and only amounts to gossip or something. Is that what lawyers, this is what this lawyer told me before. I just made it up, of course. This mixture of our culture, of our stories, of our mythology, hovers between, you know, that time when you're not quite awake and not quite asleep. Let me tell you a bit about Ombudsman. It's a very young institution in Tonga. And in a small community, being mandated to hear complaints against government and its decisions, and investigating prime ministers and ministers and what have you in public service, you quickly become the big baddies in town. I'm loving it. And it really is an opportunity to hear people do something about it. And after having been a public servant for over 30 years, my biggest challenge is dealing with public servants. And sometimes, can we just sit down? Can you just look at me and let me look at you? I know what it's like to do that job. Just help me do better and give our people the dignity they deserve. To be heard, to be understood, and when you're doing wrong, you need to change. And not tomorrow or next year, now. And everyone who works for the public service, the line they always like goes like this. This is about good governance. And you wouldn't want to be advertised as the bad governance in the world, or be tabled in the legislative assembly. So let's just do things properly. I've just got a couple more sentences and then I'll stop. That's why I'm smiling at you. Tongans have deep family connections and steadfast Christian faith values which undergird our worldview. when we celebrated 20 years of ombudsmanship in Tonga, in a country where our constitution is 1875, we're a little bit behind on creating things that give people fair go. The late Reverend Dr. Mohenoa Puloka had unaki enari lai aluki he ki a mai. Since I'm being told to stop, he had penned this sonata, and it's performed by the music faculty of Tupou Tertiary Institute in Tonga. He created a new word, Kiama, and we've added it to the Tongan language. As a call to good governance and integrity in public office, whoever you are. He wrote, Kia mau e wanoa tau, amanaki anga o kahau. Tawala I po tatala, aho mo po aho noanga. Whakamaunga o kahau he lolo tonga. Anau melie a tonga lotu folo. Hamatangi taka, he halapa, whakauwhi mai ai tau kei mo I solo. Aho eni o kauwai I Moana Pasifika. Uha pela a mari kata. Lopa tuia anga tonu manava off. Ma fola hoi ni ma pea ui a puloku aka. He te waki a katoanga he. Kua kei kuna. A ilamu o fitkita moha ulua. I have an English translation. If you are interested, I'll give it to you later. Because these two smiling people in the front has got a STOP in front of them. Tu au fato, malo.
And to our panelists for their presentation today. As you know, we're out of time, and before we head down to have our lunch, there was a question that was sent to me, so I'm going to read the question, and then we're just going to talk about it at lunchtime. How about that, right? So make our lunchtime. So I'm going to throw out an easy question to our panelists. In your opinion, how does Tonga reconcile their efforts to align with the UN Charter on Human Rights, Tongan 4 Pillars of Culture, and their no vote to the permanent ceasefire to a genocide that destroys sacred religious spaces? Majority of those killed children and women. And do you think the Tongan government, or maybe just your thoughts, based on the 4 Golden Strand, is moving towards thinking about endorsing maybe a permanent ceasefire? And that, we will discuss that during lunchtime.